Oh, you should be getting a message saying that we're live.
There it is.
All right.
And there it is.
Okay. Here we go. Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt here with Alyx King and Joel Elston. Today is Thursday, August the 8th, 2019. It's 8/8. How about that? 8/8. It is 8 a.m. in New York and 5 a.m. in Los Angeles. That's 1 p.m. London time and 9 p.m. Tokyo time, 10 p.m. Sydney time. Wherever you are in the world, thank you for joining us for another episode of LOA Today, your daily dose of happy. And I'm happy that we three are back doing our thing after Louise and I did our trip to the Cape to visit our friend Alyx and to do capey things. Which we did for about a 3.5 day period. It was wonderful. Loved it. It was great. And I am re-energized. I am re-enthused. I'm back. I feel better.
Yay.
And that's what it's all about, is feeling better, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I find it ironic that we always talk about how you control the weather, and as soon as you left, it started pouring. For like 2 days straight. Just saying. You had the whole weekend you were here, perfect weather. Soon as you left the Cape, crossed over the bridge, storm. That wasn't even supposed to happen. It was supposed to happen on Wednesday. I was like, oh, okay, this is real.
Well, welcome to my life.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I can say. I try not to say too much because Joel has informed me that I freak listeners out when I do that. So I try not to freak our listeners out. But,
well, they shouldn't be freaked out. They should be trying to do the same thing.
Well, that's one way to look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, I have this a couple of friends that listen, and they like, oh, we love what you do, except when Walt claims to control the weather. That really concerns us. And I'm like, okay, well, feedback's good, except for Walt controlling the weather.
Everybody's got a line.
yeah, I'm good with it. It's funny you said that. We had. I'm not going to put this on Walt, but yesterday we had
everybody piles on. It's all right. Go ahead.
Yeah. We had this incredible downpour.
Mm-hmm.
That, I mean, it just was. I don't want to exaggerate, but it was just one of those you can't see across the yard.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked on the radar on there's nothing there, and you're like, okay, and nobody's mentioning it. It clears up. Sun's out, then you get this severe thunderstorm warning. It's like, well, sorry, we're about an hour and a half late. So
yeah, right.
The timing was different.
Yeah.
Cindy Chavez actually had an experience like that yesterday, because Wednesday is when we do the show with her, and we normally do our Neville Goddard stuff. And at 4 p.m. Eastern time, when we were supposed to do the show, they had this massive thunderstorm that knocked the power out. We couldn't even do the show.
Oh.
And I went to look at AccuWeather to look at the radar, and there was nothing going on in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where she lives. So it was the same phenomenon. So what's up with this?
Yeah, I can't put any energy toward that. I don't know.
I don't know either. It's just strange.
It's over my head.
Yeah, it really is. It's one of those. We'll just put that in whatever category that is.
Right.
You know, it's like. But it is all a part of it. It's just way out of my league and understanding it.
Yeah. I mean, PJ told me yesterday that they were getting a monsoon in her area, which is very close to your area. And yet I was also watching a baseball game in Baltimore, and Baltimore was beautiful conditions. Right. Baltimore's not all that far from you guys, you know? So, yeah. I mean, it's strange.
It's crazy. I mean, the weather, you know, again, but we sound, you know, like really old people to talking about the weather and all that. But it's like, you know, one of my friends one time, you know, my joints hurt. It's going to rain. I go, oh, please stop. We're not 79. Let's just stop.
No, it's true though. It's so true. You know, the way my back and my knees are set up, I can definitely tell you when the weather is coming.
Well, I mean, it is very well could be. I mean, and I believe you. It's just one of those things that you know I had a dog one time that was actually my sister's dog, And when she would come back from college, the dog would actually just sit at the window waiting, and she would come back on these random times. She was like 2 hours away at college, but she'd come back at random times, and we got to the point of knowing she was coming back because the dog would stand at the window. It was very odd. It would just stand there, and then she'd pull up, and it's like, huh? Did she call the dog? I mean, how did we know? I mean,
did she call the dog?
I didn't know the dog could use the phone. That's pretty good skill right there. You know?
Yeah, that would be the story there.
That's right. Yep.
They are very smart.
They certainly are. Yep. So anyway, I didn't really have a topic in mind, but Alyx, as usual, came up with one at the last possible second, which is, that's just a testament to her creative abilities. But you thought of talking about how people can often live vicariously through others, which is interesting. I mean, you're right. That people do. Well, we do that all the time with entertainment, right?
Yeah.
Like a movie or a TV show, you're living vicariously through characters that aren't even real people. I mean, you're just on the screen.
Yeah.
But we do it all the time. We like that. And so I'm going to go right to the psychology question. Joel, why is it that we like to live vicariously through others?
To me, it's sort of and I don't have a definitive answer, but I can have an opinion. To me, it just seems that a lot of times that it can be good or bad. You're looking at someone else, through another set of eyes, and it can be beneficial. I mean, there's the idea that you can I want to use that as an example, or you can also not live your life and live through someone else, and that can be the bad side of it. But it's like anything else. One of the examples when you say that, and I'll just go with what comes to my mind. I see a lot of moms of younger kids. What I say, like 12, 13, 14-year-old kids, often females, where the moms will literally live their life that they should have had through their kid, like putting them in beauty pageants or putting them in cheerleading. And so it's almost like it's like, okay, this is the childhood I should have had. So I'm going to force it on my kid, thinking that's what she's automatically going to like. Now it happens with dads in baseball, and so I'm not trying to minimize just one side. And again, anybody that would do that to their child with baseball, we should talk about that separately. But it's just the concept that we will live through vicariously. I am not, and this is going to get a boo from Alyx here. I'm not. I don't think reality shows are good for people. I don't. I think they are, in a sense, it's unrealistic. I happen to know some people that are in that field and that do that, and so much of it's scripted when most people don't realize that it is very scripted. It is not really a reality show. Yeah. It's a scripted show perceived to be a reality show, if that makes any sense. So it sets expectations of how a family should be living or a life should be lived, and it's not remotely that way. It's just I have clients who are Instagram models. Who, if you knew the other side of that, it would be incredibly laughable. I mean, it would be bizarre to see what their life is really like. So, I mean, it's a way of deflecting. Often, sometimes it's dissociation.
And talk about what that is. Define dissociation, because that's not a typical term.
Okay, dissociation is where you basically. This happens to a lot of abuse victims. It can happen in traumatic situations. It's a protective technique that the body puts into place. When I say he, people generally will go through something, and then they almost view their life. In extreme cases of dissociation can have like multiple personalities, where someone is. Here's an example of a person I worked with. She was abused horribly sexually as a child. And when the sexual abuse would take place, she would changed personalities so she didn't feel she was being sexually abused. So she grew up with multiple personalities, where she was able to dissociate from her body and really become someone else. And there's it's sad, and that's a horrible example, but you see that where in war often, where people are required to do just ungodly things, and to survive, they have to go the other way, and or go in another direction, or become someone else, or look at it through someone else's eyes. And dissociation is very, very difficult. And but it is a protective technique. So living vicariously, and we covered a lot of areas from the benign to the serious. But when you're living vicariously, so it could be it could be healthy. I don't know if either of you have heard of the Rife-Koff effect.
No.
I'm looking up how to spell that actually as we're talking. So, but it is a concept that is a psychologist from Russia that came up with the idea of basically, like, if you wanted to be an artist, you would study an artist, everything the artist did, and you literally could sort of become an artist by living vicariously through a famous artist. And it's much more in depth than that, but child prodigies will often, happens a lot with like chess players, where chess players are literally given the entire, every game that Bobby Fischer played when he was a child. He was a chess person, for those that don't know. And I know I've heard of families where they would literally make the kids replay every game from the age of 3 until they were grown, and just literally move by move. And the Rife-Koff effect is sort of the concept that if you act as if, you become that. That's why, often people get into industries, like little kids in Italian families years ago would go in. They own a pizza shop or an Italian restaurant, for example, and the kids would go work in there. Well, you see 12-year-olds throwing pizzas and roll. Well, they often become, expert chefs at Italian food. That's a version of it. They were trained in it, but they became prodigies in it. They were just their environment became that, so they became that. That's why. There's an old TV show that was really good. I like it because it's called The Pretender. And it was someone who had the ability to he was a con man, but he had the ability to sort of, like, he could be a surgeon one day and convince people he was this great surgeon. And you see that we do that. There's some value to living vicariously. And there's also, like with anything else, there is damaging effects by it, because you can get away from your real life. You can not live your full life because you're living vicariously through someone else. So, I mean, that's a lot of ground covered, but there's a lot of reasons to do it.
Yeah. And well, what it illustrates is that there's good and bad, right? There's the part that is healthy, because, I mean, like you pointed out, living vicariously, you can vicariously assume an identity that you want to, that represents a lifestyle you want to have, and create that lifestyle. I mean, that's the law of attraction right there. You basically start believing and feeling and thinking that you are, person X who is a world traveler. And if you keep believing and thinking it, you become a world traveler, just because that's how the law of attraction works. I think what we're really saying here is the law of attraction is a tool, and you can use it any way you choose to use any tool. You can use it to benefit yourself, or you can use it to harm yourself. You can use it to benefit others. You can use it to harm others. I mean, it's a tool. It's like a screwdriver. You can do a lot of things with a screwdriver. Many of them very good. How are you going to use it? And because
I think. Yeah, go ahead.
No, finish. Go ahead.
And I do believe, like you're saying, where the law of attraction is living as if, and we've talked about the law of attraction having no opinion or good or bad. I mean, without diving into anything other than just using it as an example, we see it in politics. Our political people who are experts of the law of attraction. I mean, it's like, wow, you know, and it isn't always for good. I mean, you see that in back in Nazi Germany, where you could create reality by talking about the evildoers that are out there doing all this to us. We have to defend against that. Or you see that the propaganda that you can make reality, and that's very important. I talk about the news as being the ultimate programming machine, where each venue that, for I'm trying to any news outlet that I know of has everything from the minimal to the extreme, but there's almost a bias in the way they report. It's interesting. You could go to NPR, Fox News, and CNN's website and find that they're all talking about the same story. You can understand that, but the way they're presenting it is like such a universally different.
Yeah, it's like 3 different events happened, and they were all the same event.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And also, I remember seeing it was a documentary that interviewed past U.S. presidents. And one of the things that, I can't remember which president, it may have been more than one of them, said is, when you're president, it's really helpful to have people address you as the office rather than you as yourself, because of, like you were talking about, dissociation. It's helpful to dissociate, because otherwise you can get so emotionally wrapped up in what you're doing as president that, you have to order troops to be sent in to kill somebody, and some innocent person is going to die, and doing that in your own name is really, really hard to do. But if you do it as president, you can do it. So there's another example of how dissociation. Now, I'm not going to argue that that's actually necessarily a good thing, but it's clear that dissociation plays an important role there, and it also is about assuming that role. I mean, that's part of how that person became president. They assumed the role before they became president.
I think dissociation is a good. Oh, go ahead.
No, I'd love to hear that. I'd love to hear how it's a good thing.
I was going to say, I feel like dissociation can be a good thing, because it's like, it's your brain's way of protecting you from yourself. But at the same time, you got to be careful that it doesn't turn into dangerousness, where, like, extreme example, you have multiple personality disorder, and one of your personalities is a serial killer. So yeah. So, but other than that,
exactly right.
Yeah. Other than that, you're basically protecting your own self. So I feel like it's a good thing.
Yeah. Dissociation is very protective. Its intent is to be protective. It exists to be protective. However, just as you're saying, this is a slippery slope, because while it's protective, it is also it can be destructive, or it can create some severe mental issues. The split. Even further than multiple personalities, you literally get into distinct personalities, where one is a serial killer, or one could murder someone in cold blood and then slip back into a normal life, and sort of a Ted Bundy kind of thing, where you're able to just cold-bloodedly do something and then just live, just sort of dissociate from the evil act of it. So I know some psychologists that use dissociation as as you said, help people to safely dissociate. So I mean, there's, as with anything else, as with anything else, you have a scenario where things are good and bad. So you get to choose which you do. Law of attraction, whether or dissociate, again, you get it, as you're saying, everything on the spectrum. We talk about stress and anxiety a lot. Stress has a point. Stress, there's a reason for stress. Living without any fear or anxiety would be a dangerous world. You need some protection in that. But it also could be debilitating on the other things. So everything to me is a scale. Anything that's protective is also destructive if you do too much.
Yeah, you just got to be balanced about it.
Exactly. That's a great point.
Yeah, moderation in everything, as they say, and that's actually where the gray area is. When are you being moderate? When are you going too far? I mean, that's not always a clear thing, right? I mean, if you're Ted Bundy, I mean, we look at Ted Bundy and we say, well, clearly he went way too far. Did Ted Bundy think he went too far?
No, he doesn't.
So what's too far?
Yeah.
It's all about perspective.
Well, but again, it's an opinion. I mean, and I'm not trying to argue anything on Ted Bundy's behalf. Please don't.
Right, me neither.
But I'm just letting you, there is this perspective that makes us all unique and all, that's what the law of attraction has. Many people have difficulty. What is your life? What do you want? What do you really want? When you ask someone, one of the questions that when I'm having early in my session with people, so, okay, let's figure out what you want. Well, people have a very long list of what they don't want.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But almost no one can tell me accurately what they want.
Mm-hmm.
Right. What they'll usually tell you is, well, what I want is to not have this thing I don't want.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So in one of the techniques that I'll use, depending on what scenario people come to see it, like I will ask a question with a lot of the codependent moms that I work with or codependent people. I will say, without using another person, a person's name or requiring someone else to do something, what else would make you happy? What would make you happy? They can't say because so much of their belief system, if my son would quit using drugs, I could be happy. Or if my husband would pay more attention to me, I could be happy. Or if I had a relationship, I could be happy. And you see all that, and it becomes a very, very slippery slope.
Oh, no kidding. Very slippery. And in fact, it shows up in a wide range of areas. For instance, I saw a post on Facebook in my 10 seconds on Facebook yesterday from a person who was complaining. I don't remember the exact post, but the gist of it was, why are there so many people who are just so selfish and so what's the word for when you feel that it means that you're too much involved in yourself? There's a word for that. I can't.
Self-absorbed.
Self-absorbed is another one. But anyway, why are there people who are so like that? They're just so selfish. What's the LOA reason for that? And of course, the typical answer, and there were like literally over 100 answers, were like, oh, well, there's just some people who don't get it. Some people, they're just full of themselves. It's all about ego, blah, 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 all this stuff. And I'm reminded that, like what you were just saying, Joel, it's really about perspective. What's your perspective about it? Abraham Hicks does a really good piece in, let's see, which book is it in? I think it's in their basics book, The Basics of the Teachings of Abraham, Law of Attraction, in which they describe how a person who is focusing on someone else and criticizing that other person and saying, oh, I mean, they're just so terrible, they're so selfish, they're so, they're so full of themselves, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. What's really happening is it isn't so much what the other person is, it's what the person who's saying all that is actually experiencing. They're experiencing it because they're choosing to experience that. They're choosing to put out there, well, my happiness is dependent upon that other person behaving differently. They're not behaving differently, therefore there's something wrong with that person. And when you look at it that way, you say, well, wait a minute, is it really about somebody else being such a horrible person? Or is it about
it's all
me?
about you. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that a question to me?
Kind of, yeah. It's more like it's sort of an observation to be discussed. But I guess my point is, what seems like a clear-cut thing. Oh, that person is so selfish. Oh, that person is so self-absorbed. Isn't as clear-cut as it originally seemed?
I feel like they're saying that because the other person's not making it about them. So they're just assuming that they're selfish.
Yeah.
Well, and selfish by definition, again, the work I do on myself, the work that I adopt children, I help people, but I am very self-absorbed with my self-help because a healthy me is able to help more people.
Yeah.
So, you know, I get up every morning. I have my routines that are all help. I get up on purpose. Justin knows that in the afternoon, or if I'm at home, if I'm in my office, I'll have my door shut, and I do my meditations. That's self-help. It's not being selfish. I've explained to him that and I will tell him I'm going to be, for 30 minutes, I want to be doing my meditations. You do not disturb me during that time. And he understands, and he's really good at it. It isn't me being selfish and not being, I need midday to recharge. I used to always, after I eat lunch, I'd have this really I need to take a nap kind of thing. Since I started my midday meditation, that's all gone. It's amazing. I love it. So me being to perform to the best of my ability, I do that. So would it be viewed as selfish? Yes. I get up every day. I do this. And so from someone's perspective, that's great. And other people say, well, Joel, you're so unselfish. You've adopted 3 children from foster care. And again, it's a perspective. And I think most people claiming other people are selfish, Alyx hit it on the head. It's because it's not about the person claiming the other one's selfish. It's being able to tell people, you know, your journey. You go do your journey. I'll do my journey. And there'll be some interactions, but I can't be distracted by what your perception of your journey needing my help. And I mean, it's just this vicious cycle that some people, you get into the victimization of things often of like, well, they're selfish because, you know, they can't help me. I told all 3 of my children, and 2 of them, TJ and Chris, both learned this. If you get arrested for any reason, and you have one phone call to make to bail you out of jail, under no circumstances call me, because my answer will universally be no.
Oh, wow.
I don't bail any human out of jail. I don't. And so, you know, one time when my son Chris had a little minor thing, it was a very silly thing. He got arrested, and he called, and he said, son, I said, you're violating my rule. I said, no. He said, well, Dad, it's only $100. And I said, son, I will pay $1,000 for you to stay an extra week. And you know, don't make your foolish choice. The reason jail exists to me is you know, you made a foolish choice, pay your consequence and not do it again. And so, again, that's my perspective. And he said, well, it's sort of selfish. You won't. I said, well, you can view it however you want to view it, son. Then he tried to get his, oh, do you not have $100? I go, son, I got a lot of money.
Wow.
I'm just not bailing you out of jail. It doesn't matter if I got $20 million in the bank. I'm not bailing you out of jail.
Yeah.
And it's just this idea, again, when you look at it, and I'm sure his narrative to his friends and other family members of his biological family, my dad's so selfish. It would only cost him $100. He would, you know, he spends that on lunch sometimes or something. I can hear him saying all that. But again, it's all right. I understand. The greatest lessons that I ever learned were the lessons that I had to experience. And I think it would be selfish of me to try to take that away from my son. I look at it from a totally different other perspective.
Exactly. Yeah, he's not taking into account the lesson that he's learning. But of course, hindsight's 2020. We don't see that till later in life.
Of course, and that's part of the growth process. I just am all the time dealing with, you know, the scenarios that you know, when my son's facing this consequence, my daughter's facing this consequence at family. You can mitigate the consequence this time, but you're going to, at some point, they're going to have that consequence.
Otherwise, they're going to feel like there's always a safety net, so they can just do whatever they want, and then mommy or daddy will fix it.
Right. Yep. Yes.
I think that's why I like the way Abraham phrases it in the book. And I actually copy this out of the book and paste it into a text document, so I can copy and paste it into, you know, Facebook or whatever, whenever I see somebody going off on, oh, well, this other person is so fill in the blank. I don't care what is they're talking about. If there's a fill in the blank, then this is what I respond with, and I'll read it to you. It's this is from The Law of Attraction: The Basics of the Teachings of Abraham by Esther Jerry Hicks. It's on page 141 of the book, and it says, "Their disapproval of me is their lack. If there are others who see something in you that they do not approve of, most often you see their disapproval reflected back through their eyes, and you feel that you've gone wrong in some way. And we say to you, it's not your lack, it's theirs. It is their inability to be the allower that brings forth their negative emotion. It's not your imperfection. And in like fashion, when you feel negative emotion because you've seen something in others that you do not want to see, it is not their lack, it is your own. So when you make the decision that you want to see only that which pleases you, then, not surprisingly, you will begin to see only that which pleases you. And all of your experiences will bring forth positive emotion, because by the law of attraction, you will attract to you only that which is in harmony with what you want. By understanding the power of your emotions, you can then direct your thoughts, and then you will no longer need others to behave differently in order for you to feel good." And that last sentence right there, that's what it's all about. You no longer need others to behave differently in order for you to feel good.
Say it again for the people in the back.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff.
Really good stuff.
And that's exactly, this concept of your perspective and how you're viewing it, and how other people, this concern how other people are viewing you, and I just look at it from just that you get what you see, and when you condition yourself to just see it, it happens that way, and it sounds dismissing. They talk a lot about, and this gets a lot of pushback from people in the treatment world that I deal with, or the therapeutic world. Like one of the, and I'm going to paraphrase, I need to find this so I can actually quote it literally. But someone's asking, Esther about, childhood trauma or something, and, all the pain, should I process that? And her basic response, well, if you want to.
Yes,
that
right.
could be a choice. If you want it to be relevant, you can make it relevant, or you can let it go. Oh my gosh, that really freaks out the therapist. You know what I'm saying? They're like, that's but her point is, a life event only has as much power as you give it. One person's trauma is another person's Tuesday. I mean, it's just what it is. And I've used the example, I don't know how long ago we used this, but I've had two clients who had eerily similar experiences. They aren't related. They don't know each other, and these are years apart. But both clients in different parts of the country had a home that burned to the ground. And ironically, they're both from lightning strikes, but that was the only commonality. And when one of the guys' home burned to the ground, he really went into it put him into an extreme anxiety-filled state. He had 2 years of deep therapy. He went into this, stayed at his mom's house, wouldn't come outside, developed agoraphobia, had all kinds of stress, couldn't sleep, was on multiple medications, and viewed it as the greatest trauma of his life. He reported it as the biggest trauma he had ever experienced. And now, he didn't lose any pets. No one was injured. He was reimbursed by insurance. But his perception, it just was horrible to lose everything. Then the other guy viewed it as like, God, I was ready to move anyway. I made up so much more money than he's like, I padded my insurance report. I ended up literally making like $25,000 extra. He said, I bought a new house. He said, the greatest thing that ever happened to me was a house burned down.
Yeah, I co-sign with that guy.
Yeah. Same event. And I know when I adopted Justin and he moved in, and obviously I've been to be at the time 10 years old and going to a new home and coming from foster care into a different environment with this weird dude who has unique views of everything. But his question to me is like, he was worried about stuff or whatever. And he said, what if something happens to our house? And I said, well, we'll just get a new house, buddy. They still make them.
They still make them.
And I said, well, they still make them. Don't worry. And he's like, well, what if something has our car? I said, don't worry about it. I said, there's nothing that we can't get more of. We have an abundance, and we can have as many houses as we need, and we don't ever have to worry about not having that. And he quickly got out of that mindset, but he was so used to looking for what could go wrong.
Yeah. Well, that's a mindset that a lot of people are in. I mean, you mentioned politics. Every once in a while, you see somebody post something in the Facebook LOA group that has a political tone to it, and instantly, it's like the entire audience forgets how the law of attraction works. It just completely goes right out the window.
Yeah, because it's like, oh, hold on, let me get my petty comment in first.
In fact, I've even seen people say, well, law of attraction doesn't apply here.
Wow. This is what we're doing? Okay. All right.
See, law of attraction, in their view, only applies when you want to have something come into your life. It doesn't apply to things like politics that you don't like.
Oh, so he must have the law of attraction genie that everybody's been looking for.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you only get 3 wishes, so.
Well, and to say something, and this is a little off course here, but to say that one of the things that I actually told somebody the other day who belongs to multiple Facebook law of attraction groups. And he said,
is it Walt?
No, it should be. He actually fit this as well. But this person said, there's so much conflicting information and so much arguing. And I said, if you want to figure out how to negatively use the law of attraction, join all the Facebook groups.
Agreed.
Yes.
And to those Facebook people who are listening, I apologize if that is offensive. I don't mean it to be, but I find it ironic that the most snarky comments come of I have gotten out of all the groups. I just found them baffling. The arguments that take place, or the people that have, again, they really, it's sad. And I wish we didn't have that going on, because it is such it's such a sad little world we live in, where you're living through this vicariously in a law of attraction mindset, but you're looking for a battle. My law of attraction practice is best. You're doing it wrong. And here's how you're doing it wrong. And it's just, you see it over and over and over. And I just said, oh my gosh, if you want to see how to do it wrong, go there.
It's
just,
it's like people.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, it's like people forget you can only account for yourself.
Yes.
So be accountable.
Yeah. Well, and that's that. I work in addiction treatment. I do a lot of different areas, and I got out of the addiction treatment groups because I'll see the arguments there.
That must be
12-step people versus. It's just you see the therapists that are convinced they're the only ones that have it right, and that you have the hardcore 12-step people and the non-12-step people, and my message of it's all a toolbox. Your job is to find out which tool works for your client. That's all there is to it. There's nothing else. And this only works, or this only works, or they only need to do this. I go, well, that's not even close to true. But yet they get so invested in them. And again, there's an ego effect, and it's just, well, this worked for me. I said, okay, that's great. We have a billion different reasons why we all have addictive behavior. And so your unique set of reasons found relief in this method. That doesn't mean that everyone will find relief in that same method.
So what you're describing there, your experience of these groups full of people who really mess things up, it fits in beautifully with what Abraham was talking about. In one sense, you could say, we could summarize that as you're disapproving of the way that they do things, but you don't actually get caught up in your disapproval. you've come up with a way to overcome that, and that is you just don't participate. You say, oh, well, I'm not going to deal with that stuff because I know I'll just go down a rabbit hole, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, so I'm just going to unsubscribe. To heck with it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I don't want to be drawn into it, or here's a really good example. Okay, this one day I was a member. This was just a plain old Facebook post, and a friend of mine who is a preacher, and he has a church, and I'm not necessarily, he is a friend. I don't necessarily agree with his belief system, but at the same time, he's a really good guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I'm questioning why our attendance is going down and what we're doing wrong. Does anyone have any ideas of how to get our attendance up? And so I responded with, well, there's churches. Joel Osteen's church, for example, has 10,000 people that show up every weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So I would, if your question is how do you get more people there, what is he doing or what is their church doing to attract people? That was just a simple statement. You asked how, I'm telling you one method. Then he went on this rant of how Joel Osteen was not really a Christian and all the things that Joel Osteen, he went on and on and on about all the things Joel Osteen was doing.
So totally missed the message.
Yeah. And so I said, oh, I'm sorry. I misunderstood the question. I thought you were asking how to get more people in. And I'm telling you, now you're on a rant against Joel Osteen. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And he never understood the difference in the question.
Yeah.
I'm like, I said, and then so he said, well, I don't understand that you don't understand. I said, well, you answered your own question.
He probably would have done better. He would have handled it better if you had said, well, Rush Limbaugh has a whole bunch of people follow him.
Right.
That probably would have worked,
Right. Well, and that's sort of the point. It just, you ask a question and then you get emotionally invested in the answer because it doesn't match your belief system. And then so you see a lot of that, and that's what happens a lot, and everyone has, I had a Facebook post up the other day, and I do not do political. I just do not do it. But I had this one post that was on the edge of, it was a sarcastic event. Like, I think everyone should spend more time arguing with strangers about politics on Facebook. And,
I saw that.
Yeah. And so everybody got it. There's a lot of laughter, except one lady wrote, that's how Hitler got into power.
Oh, heaven's sake.
I'm like, oh God. So, and then of course, she's very left-wing Democratic. That was her statement.
Right.
And so by the time I saw it, of course, my right-wing defender of Trump gets in there and goes, whatever his statement was, and I just deleted the whole post. I mean, it's like a virus. It's like a virus that took off. It within seconds, it was going to escalate, and I'm thinking, it's a joke. It is simply a joke.
Everybody calm down. Have several seats. Yeah. It wasn't that serious.
Yeah. And so it was just. But that's my. You can't even have that because so many people are on guard for. They're looking to be offended. They're looking to have their belief system. And so, the woman that originally made the Hitler statement, she posts constantly about, her views. And I respect her views. I actually share some of her views. They're not that bad. And some of the stuff she is just a little ridiculous. And again, from my perspective, but I don't challenge it. But she was actually not offended, but she was defending herself while she posts politically when it was never. She's one of 1,200 people that's my friend. So I wasn't attending that to her, but she took it as like, well, if I don't post that, then Hitler's basically going to take over the United States. I'm like, oh, so your Facebook post is preventing anarchy. Thank God that you're able to do that.
Our savior. I love it. Go ahead.
I was going to say I had a similar experience with a Facebook post. It was a post I posted of it looked like an assault rifle, but it was really a camera setup. Like it had the Nikon strap and everything, but it was just set up to look like, so the post was, give me a good reason why someone would need something like this. So I put, to take amazing selfies. No one else got it. And they're all like, oh, this is what happened in El Paso. This is, we need more gun restriction. I was like, oh, you guys, do you not see the Nikon strip? Like, what is happening? It's not that serious. Like, everybody sit down.
Well, and that's what everybody is so reactive to everything.
Yes.
And
yes,
you know, anything that gets on the edge of what their sensibilities are or sensitivities are, then they get very reactive in defense. Like you know, they assume what you meant nothing. It's hilarious. What you're saying is hilarious. It's good. It's funny, but it's not a laughing matter.
Yeah.
It's like, what you mean? The funny camera assault rifle is not funny. It is, you know, or you know, it's you know, some you get all of this, and this is a very important thing to look at when your energy is placed in a defensive posture, defending your belief system. Again, the law of attraction, responding to that, and you're attracting that conflict. And it just, there's political stuff. I'm all about, let's go vote, study your candidates, vote. I do not want atrocities. I don't want, you know, all that. But when you have one party that is looking for, you know, anything that the president says, you know, he is vile often, but he could say anything, and they're all like, oh, he said duh.
Yeah.
Do you believe he said the word duh twice?
Right.
I mean,
Twice in a row.
You know, it's so, you know, there's just zero. They give him zero as far as, like, and again, I'm not saying he deserves anything, but it's just like extreme. Well, the economy's good. You hear somebody, oh no, but you know, this sector is. They automatically look for the bad. On the other side, you have, he can say whatever he wants to say, no matter how vile it is. The other side is, well, Bill
and then
Clinton
look for
did
the
worse.
good.
Or you know, I have this one friend that I mean, it's just automatic almost. I jokingly, in his response to anything positive about anything, you know, negative about Trump is, well, at least Benghazi didn't happen.
Yeah.
Like, oh God,
Wow.
oh God. Yeah, you know, and it's just his response to everything. It's just, so it isn't like, well, you know, Bill Clinton sexually assaulted or took advantage of one woman, and actually 7 women, and Trump has only done 6. So it's better. Trump's a better president because he hasn't had oral sex in the Oval Office. He did it at his apartment. Oh, okay. Well, clearly,
Okay.
well, thank God for that. You know?
Listen,
Yeah.
I can't with
God bless America.
America and the semantics. I cannot.
Yeah. But you get my point. You see that it's like,
Yeah.
oh, and so again, I don't want to. It's not about, you know, because I'm just not a fan of any of these people. But at the same time, I don't give that energy.
Right.
My economy is going wonderfully. I feel great. I have a great life. My private practice is going well. I have great health. My family's so I don't need to get bogged down in all of that.
Yeah.
It's just.
I want to go to
it's so pervasive.
I want to go to the example that you were giving earlier, that Alyx gave earlier about, I can't remember which one of you gave it earlier. One of you gave it. about the assault camera, right?
Yeah.
And if I see something like that, quite honestly, I don't think it's funny. I understand where the humor is, but I really don't think of it as funny. But by the same token, I'm not attached to it.
Right. Right.
I don't get attached to, oh my God. I don't get attached to that. And why don't I get attached to it? Is it because I'm a freak? No, it's because I choose not to become attached to it. No, thank you. I know where that goes. I've been there. I don't really need to go that direction anymore because I've experienced what it's like to attach to something that's so negative, and it starts creating more and more negativity for me. So,
yeah, you only need to go down the rabbit hole once.
Well, some people apparently need more than once. But anyway, the point is that you get to choose whether you're going to be attached. I remember very early on with law of attraction, asking myself, how on earth am I supposed to let go of something? I don't even know how I'm holding on. Well, the answer to that is I attach to things by saying, oh, I am going to get so wrapped up about X, whatever X is. And it's usually something negative, and it's usually something I really, really, really don't like. And that is being attached. That is how I attach to something. So what does letting go of that mean? It means just stop paying attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like, yeah, I'm just not going to buy into that craziness anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what it is to let go.
Yeah, and letting go is when, you know, you can have, I encourage everyone to have their strong feelings and opinions and have them. I think it's really, when they can become negative in the law of attraction too, when you become so adamant in their defense. I explained to someone the other day, you know, because I was explaining sort of my belief system, and tends to sort of have, you know, I'm about 70% Buddhist, you know, I've got a little, I have a little this, a little that. And I sort of created, you know, we'll call it Joel's religion. It's a little of everything, you know?
Okay.
And somebody said, well, you know, none of your stuff is really based on doctrine. And I said, well, okay, thank you. You know, the Gospel of Thomas is a deleted book from the Bible, which is basically a law of attraction book for those who've never read it. And of course, it got deleted because it is a law of attraction book in my mind. But I really believe that. And he's like, well, you know, I referenced, I said, well, part of, you know, the Gospel of Thomas, what I really believe. And he said, well, that was deleted from the Bible. I go by a random group of people in 325. You know, you only had, you know, 325, a random group of people at some convention said, you know, we're going to get rid of this book in the Bible because it doesn't match. I said, so, you know, I'm just, so at the moment I start down that path in defense of it, then it gets to this and this versus, let me stop. My belief system doesn't require anyone else to agree with it at all to be my belief system. I'm good with it.
Yeah.
I never volunteer what my belief system is unless someone asks, and then I will say it. And then if they say, well, I disagree. Okay, well then you asked me. I'm not preaching it to you.
Right.
And it's this, you see that, but when people get so, they don't want to be wrong. It's just, you have to understand, you have to understand, like I have one friend that just is adamant that I don't understand his view on abortion. He said, Joel, you're a good man. You just aren't understanding. I said, well, thank you. I said, I appreciate your point of view.
Well, thank you.
I understand where your point of view comes from. I see it. And I have differing belief system on the overall process. I don't want to get into it. It doesn't matter. Right. But but at the same time, every individual has their own opinion of that, and it's obviously a very hot topic. And let every individual do what they need to do with that. And this is where we go with, you know, the law of attraction tells us, do not attach to it. So you know, it really is this processing of life, you know, this processing of everything, of us figuring it out. Let's put our energy in the right direction. And when you understand, you get in tune with the law of attraction, none of this stuff matters.
Yes.
Facts.
None.
That's right. Yeah. And that's the whole point. Well, let's be more precise. It only matters if I decide that it matters. And if I decide to go to, and that's where the power is. That's where the control is. If I find myself in a negative spiral where I'm constantly focusing on things that I don't like, and I keep getting more and more of what I don't like, I really do have control over that. And it's a tough concept because of the same reason why it is that somebody who understands at least the basics of the law of attraction will find themselves in a political discussion and all of their knowledge will go out the window. It's the exact same experience.
Yeah.
Look, they already know this. They already have control. They have thrown the control away. They've decided, no, I am now a victim, despite the fact that 2 seconds ago I knew I was in control, but now I'm a victim.
I feel like go ahead.
No, I love it. I'm waiting for you.
I was saying, I feel like when it comes to strong negative feelings or opinions or, you know, whatever happened to happen to you that day, and now you're like, oh my God, my world is over, blah, blah, blah. All right, your feelings are valid for that moment. Like, I personally, if I feel something like that coming on, I'm going to give it a time limit. I'm like, all right, you're allowed 2 hours of bitching and complaining, and then we're done. That's it. It's over. Don't even subscribe to it again. It's done.
Right. Well, and this is, one of the lessons this for me this week is I was one of the books I was listening to. I listened to so many, I forget which one it was, but it's the guy was talking about blessing, not in a religious sense, but people that you have resentments toward, or people who have harmed you, or people that have wronged you. Well, I think I've let most of my stuff go. Mm-hmm. There are a few people who several years ago intended to set out. Their goal was to literally try to destroy me. Mm-hmm. In a business perspective, and now it had the reverse effect. It put me in a great position of success and all that. So mm-hmm. I've always viewed it as like, well, I'm grateful that happened. But there's always been this feeling of this one particular person, 2 people total, but one particular person was the driving factor that did a lot of behind the scenes shady stuff, a lot of lying, and really set me up. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know what happened, and somebody I trusted very much, and they threw me. So I thought I had let go of that, because in the end, that chain of events put me in a position to have the success and the life I have today. And right. I see exactly how it happened. So, but at the same time, I still have this deep, I didn't even realize it till I'm listening, who comes to mind when I think of somebody who had wronged me, or what, and I don't hold it. I don't feel like I hold it, but I there's some level of resentment for somebody to take that much energy and effort to, and totally fabricate a bunch of stuff and create and literally cost me a career job. I didn't see it coming, and of course the other person that participated was manipulated by this first person. So within all of that, they're clear. So I need to take that for me. I didn't realize there was still a bit of that there. Now, I still see it as a positive. Thank God it all happened. I'm grateful this person did what they did. But the fact that person did it, I still have this red flag that I need to. So I'm actually started changing perspective even further. And I started praying for this person, or meditating in a positive. I'm blessing this person, because whatever chain of events that happened in this person's life to become so, whatever you would call this, obviously was very traumatic, and there's a response to it. So not that I will never speak to this person again, more than likely, never have any interaction with this person. There's I need to make sure that I don't just go neutral. I need to go to the other side. And that's been very positive, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
It's just coming at it from another way. And, and the resistance, we talk about resistance a lot. The resistance that we keep thinking we don't have is often the resistance of resistance. It's just, it's, like I said, one day I had a dream one night, woke up in the middle of the night, wrote it down, and the statement, I don't know where it came from in the dream, but it was like, your desire is the resistance. When you desire it too much, you think that's what you're doing in the law of attraction, but you're over desire. When you want it too bad, you're actually putting out the feeling of lack. And then so the desire can be the resistance itself, when you're often told to desire what you want, but yet there's that balance, and that's where we get all wonky with the law of attraction.
That's true. That's very true.
Yeah, that's the tough part. That's the tough part.
Hey, before we wrap up, I want to remind people about subscribing to the podcast. If you're not yet a subscriber, please do become one. You'll find us on all the major platforms. We're on iTunes, we're on Google Play, we're on Spotify, Pandora. We're in all the major places you can find us. But the simplest thing is just to go to the homepage of our website, loatoday.net, and it will walk you through the steps of subscribing with your particular device. And that way you get all of our episodes coming right to your smartphone every single time. Plus, automatically, you can, at the same time, check us out on YouTube and watch us, because we actually live stream these while we're recording them to YouTube. You can see our happy, smiling faces, except for Joel. Joel, you just see his name, but that's okay. But most of us, you can see our faces. And it's a kind of an added dimension to have the video thrown in, even though podcasts aren't about video. Why not? You can do that too. So go to YouTube. And how do they do that? Alyx, you always tell the YouTube thing better than I do.
You go to YouTube and you search LOA Today podcast videos. And once you've done that, down below, you hit the subscribe button. And next to the subscribe button, there's a little bell. Hit the bell. Make sure you click always, so you'll always be notified when we are live.
There it is. Very simple. So please become a subscriber. We want you to keep following because every single discussion is a whole lot of fun. We want you to be a part of it. Thank you so much to our live stream listeners, to our podcast listeners, and to our PRN listeners. Thank you, Joel. I hope you have a great week.
You as well.
And Alyx, as usual, you're like my rock. You're in like half the podcast now. You realize that?
I know, right? I'm everywhere.
You're everywhere. So thank you as well. We will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.